One of the big transfer sagas of this summer looks potentially close to a conclusion now, with Arsenal reportedly very close to signing Nicolas Pépé from Lille for around 80 million euros, according to reports. I guess there's two aspects to this story. The first is the fact that Arsenal have won the race for him, and the second is the kind of player that Arsenal fans can expect to see. In terms of the first aspect, there's been so many teams linked with Pepe over the summer. Inter and Liverpool have constantly been rumoured to be interested. His representatives met with Napoli representatives last week. Man United, even Everton, Bayern Munich have all been linked, while Pepe himself has clearly been holding out for PSG. So I guess you can look at some of these links with a little bit of cynicism. I don't know if it's Lille or Pepe's representatives trying to generate interest when perhaps there was less than they expected. For example, I think they were probably waiting for the African Cup of Nations to take place, hoping that he'd have a great tournament and that would bump the price up a little bit more. But either way, the fact that Arsenal have won this race, particularly since they're not in the Champions League next season, is really a great coup for them. And following off the back of the Saliba signing, I think hopefully is a sign that even though Arsenal don't have the same kind of funds as teams like Manchester City, they've still got some good pulling power. In terms of the player they're going to sign, Pepe really does look a class act. He's 24, he's just coming into the prime of his career, and he's coming off the back of, it's not just a season, but a really good 18 months or so. 2 seasons back, after having been signed from Angers by Lille, by Marcelo Bielsa, Bielsa played him for the first half of the 2017-18 season as a centre forward, and much like the whole of the Lille team, it just didn't gel, whether it was him being uncomfortable in that position or not getting enough support from his teammates. It just didn't work out. But once Bielsa had gone, Pepe kind of came into his own. He scored 9 goals in the second half of that season, and last season his stats are fantastic: 22 goals and 11 assists. At one point, a lot of his goals had seemed to have been penalties, but I think 10 of his last 14 were in open play. And with that, there were important goals as well, goals against PSG, Lyon, Saint-Etienne, Marseille, assists in PSG's famous, or Lille's famous 5-1 victory over PSG. He had 2 assists as well as a goal. So, a big name player, big game player, as well as I'm not going to say a flat track bully, but he was a consistent goal scorer and provider of assists against all teams all season, helping Lille to second place and Champions League qualification. In terms of the kind of player he is, he's a very speedy, very skillful winger. He likes to play on the right wing, cutting in onto his left foot, I guess, in a kind of Robin style, or you could even hark back to Thierry Henry on the other side. Arsenal fans might like that comparison. But yeah, great finisher with his left foot, but as I said, also very unselfish and a great provider of goals too. I think he can play as centre forwards, even though, as I said, it was a bit of a struggle under Bielsa. He can play in a front three, or as he did a lot of the time for Lille last season, in a sort of line of three behind a central attacker. So I think this bodes well for Arsenal, whether he's playing alongside the likes of Lacazette and Aubameyang, or maybe with Aubameyang and Ozil, with Lacazette further forward. He can really adapt to whatever system they want to play. At Lille, he really thrived in their kind of style, which was sort of sit back, invite pressure, and then really hit other teams on the break. Arsenal have obviously been more of a possession-based team over the years, but they did show signs last year of kind of converting into that kind of team, so that could really help him. But even in terms of possession, he's still able to muck in. Defensively, there's less onus on attacking players to help the defence in France, but his stats clearly show that he's up for tracking back and helping his right back. So that might take a little bit of adaptation period in England, but he's gonna settle into that as well. It was a long season, so there's not too much, I don't think, to be read into his poor African Cup of Nations. He was among the players who played more minutes than any other in Liga. So I think he could have done with a break in the summer. But I'm sure that a move to the Premier League and to a team like Arsenal, refreshed, will really be the making of him. Of course, you have to say there's a little bit of risk in signing someone for such a lot of money who has only had a really top-class 18 months behind him. But at the same time, you look at players like Ousmane Dembele, who didn't have that much longer behind him, was also a lot more inexperienced, and he went for over 100 million. So, frankly, 30 million less than that, you could argue, is a bargain, relatively speaking. And I really think that Arsenal signing a top player who, if he carries on his learning curve of the last couple of years, is going to become a truly world class player and either help Arsenal to bigger, better things, or if he were to move on in the next year or two, I think Arsenal can look to make a good profit on him. But either way, I expect him to fit into Arsenal's system very well and become a real success.